So you've got your kiddos and they're excited to read, but how do you actually build the phonological awareness? How do you help with pre-reading skills? You can't just give a kiddo a book and say, here you go. Well, join us today as we talk about how to play with sounds. Welcome back to our Preschool All-Stars podcast. I'm your host, Joy Anderson, and with me today is my good friend, Shann Acevedo. She has a master's degree in early childhood, over 14 years of preschool teaching experience, and she is the creator of learnasyouplay.net. So Shann, welcome to our podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you. You are just a bundle of joy. I love it. So let's talk now. Before we jump into, how to help our kiddos with pre-reading skills, let's go back a step. You've created this beautiful community, Learn As You Play, and you have your Storytime Play membership. But where did this all come from? I mean, certainly this idea to build this business stemmed from somewhere. You've got 14 years of preschool teaching. Go ahead and bring us back to the day where this all began.
Sure. We started about 3 years ago. And I was just following all of these teaching blogs, and like getting ideas and then kind of twerking ideas just to kind of go with my teaching beliefs. And then I was like, I'm doing all these things with my own children, with my classroom. Like, why aren't I just putting it out there? So then I just started a blog. I started Learn As You Play. And it was just me in the beginning, just kind of putting out activities I was doing with my kids and things I was doing in my classroom. I was focusing a lot on just kind of like things you could find around your house, just like low budget, like everybody can kind of do this stuff. And then I, just kind of flew into the blogging world from there. I early on, maybe 6 months in, had a post go viral. It went to like 8 million. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a blogger. So that's kind of just how the journey started. I think I was at the time too, working at, one of the top 10 most innovative preschools in the country. And they were really wanting us to kind of step out of the box and find our own way and find our voice. And that just kind of like all kind of came together. And then, so that was kind of how we got started.
I love that. Okay. Everybody's wondering, what was the blog post on that went to 8 million?
It was painting with fly swatters. So
painting with fly swatters.
Yeah, a bunch of kids outside with trays of paint, some fly swatters, and they were painting sheets that were hanging on, like you could hang them on a fence. We had these things on our playground at the time. You could kind of hang it over. And it was just like painting, gross motor activity, and it was, people loved it.
When you say that, I just imagine our little 3-year-olds going rogue and dipping in the paint and then chasing each other and swatting each other.
It's so funny. I think like so many people commented that way, like, oh, if I gave this to my kids, what would happen? But maybe because my class had been used to doing stuff like that. And, we had talked about, how to use art materials and things like that. Like, in the video, you could see like that doesn't happen, but I could see how that easily could.
I think just the nature of fly swatting,
sure.
Right?
Yeah. And I was, fortunate enough to be at a school too, where like the kids came home messy. Like that was just what, the parents knew that they all came with an extra change of clothes. They were, they were expected to get messy. Right?
I love that.
3 and 4.
100%. Yes. I love that. Okay. So you've got this amazing wealth of preschool teaching experience and wanting to just give back to outside of just your classroom, right? Share all these ideas with the world. That's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, once you do start blogging, you realize like, how you do connect to people all around the world, which has been a really cool experience too. Just, meeting people in the education world from everywhere.
And I think so many times we see so many educators starting these blogs and these websites as also just a resource for them to like process and see how things have developed and, be able to put their teaching kind of out there in the world and say, this is what we learned, in the classroom. Hopefully this is helpful for you, but it helps you to elevate your teaching as well, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I as much as I'm giving people ideas, I'm getting ideas as well from other people, or I can post something and someone might say, oh, try doing it this way. Or I've done it this way. And I'm like, that's a great idea. I never thought about, but I could do with these same exact materials and just do, like focus on a whole nother standard. So yeah, it's great because as much as I'm teaching people, they're teaching me too.
That's awesome. So now let's come into this. So we've got your Storytime Play membership, and then you also have this amazing resource that helps teachers and parents be able to build this phonological awareness in their students and children. Where did that come from?
Just in working in different preschools and kind of like seeing where preschool education has gone. And I think, you see all different types of schools. And I just really believe that young children are hands-on learners. I want to make everything feel like they're not learning, like they're just playing. I don't even want them to realize they're learning. I just want them to have fun. And so, reading is such an important thing. And there's so much that goes into learning to read. It would always break my heart when I would have parents in a 3-year-old class that would be like, when is my kid going to read? And it was just like, there's so many things we have to learn before that. And so just going back to making learning fun, connecting literature, connecting children's books to being able to focus on math and science and art and reading. It's not like we just read books to focus on reading. We can focus on every subject through any book. And so really just the thought of not having kids being drilled with flashcards and memorizing sounds, but really just playing and it being a more natural thing. And, researchers have shown, and a lot of with brain, research and the neurological research that, that's how kids learn best. That's how they retain the information, by doing, not by just, memorizing.
Absolutely. I was actually just chatting with Amy Nilsson from Planning Playtime just a couple hours ago. And she's like, yeah, the whole, repetition. Okay, it only serves so much. But if we include play as we are, doing repetition and other things like that, but we're repeating through play and different methods, it sticks. It's like the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah. I think with the phonological awareness course too, we were seeing a lot of people almost skipping steps of building pre-reading, wanting so fast to get kids into beginning sounds and things like that. But there's other things that you need to learn before that to really understand language and just the sounds of language in general, that, there's small, tiny sounds, phonemes that will make up each word, each individual sound. But before we get to that, we have to realize even just word awareness, that words make up a sentence, and that that's just big chunks of sounds. And so there's just a lot more to language than I think some people, are teaching young children.
Totally, totally. Let's go back then and let's start at the beginning. What are those first kind of things us as parents and educators should be instilling in our children and students?
Sure. For when I'm in my classroom or even with my own kids, my kids now are 8, 5, and 1, almost 1. I always would start with word awareness. So it's more of just starting with reading a sentence and having kids do fun things. In my class, we used to even do it with affirmations sometimes. Just so it could be you are the best. And you would be like, you are the best. And you just stretch it out. I'm not concerned that they could tell me how many numbers at first are in that sentence, just more that we're getting the movement and understanding that there's words forming the sentence, that it's not just one big row of letters that mean nothing. And then we typically would move into compound words. So, a lot of people will jump to syllables, but those are a little bit harder for kids because, it's more split up caterpillar.
Right.
Opposed to understanding a compound word like football, it's 2 words that make 1.
Yes.
So we would do a lot of blending and segmenting and stuff like that. And you can do that with, something where you're tossing a ball to a kid and, so the word is football. And maybe I toss the ball and I say foot. What part do you hear at the end? And they might say ball and throw it back, or, so just getting them up and moving too. From there, after compound words, then you could jump into syllables because they get a little smaller than the compound words. And then kind of that onset and rime. So then you're depicting the beginning sound and the, ending part of the word. And then you have a rhyming and then individual phonemes. And some kids in preschool, they don't get all the individual phonemes yet, and that's okay. But learning all of those steps to get to build a really strong reader is going to help kids in the long run, when they're in older and they can depict these sounds. Cause I can see it even with my 8-year-old now who's in 3rd grade, and it gets harder and they're doing book reports and and it just, but that he's got good pre-reading skills that he can kind of decode the words in that way.
Totally. And you said a phrase, onset rime. And I'll be quite frankly honest, years ago when I was creating my private kindergarten, I didn't know what onset rime was. I didn't go to kindergarten school to learn onset rime. And so I had to school myself on what onset rime is. And I know there's some listeners right now that don't know what that is. So could you clue us in on what onset rime is?
Yeah, it's just kind of, so like if you're breaking up a word, how it would be, the onset is kind of the beginning sound. So the consonant. So say the word, is cat or pot. We'll say pot, right? So is the onset, the consonant, and then ot would be the rhyme. So a simple game like that we like to play is, I could put all the onsets, kind of the consonants, I print out a bunch and maybe put it on like green cards. And then the rhymes, the ending sounds, I could put on yellow cards. And so then like I will play music and just lay the cards all over the floor. And then when I stop it, I'll have the kids run and pick up one onset, one rhyme, and they blend them together. And this is, something that they think is so funny too, because when you're working with onset and rhyme, a lot of times the words could be nonsense words, which is okay too, because it's with sound, so sometimes it comes up silly and they'll, maybe it's supposed to be ot, but they got, an S and they're like, ot, and they think it's hysterical because, so it's just, developing then the beginning sound and then the rest of the word.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. I know a lot of times us preschool teachers, we say words all the time, but we, bringing demystifying the terms for sure is awesome. I love that. Okay. And also I've seen some really cool ways that even in our pre-K classes or especially kindergarten classes, ways that we can rotate things to be able to see, like you said, like, okay, pot, and then you rotate it one and there's a D. So dot, and rotate it another, and then maybe there's a L, lot, or something like that. And so it's kind of like this rotating thing. And you're like, oh, that's really cool. Something super easy we can make at home.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I've seen people even do, like flip books where like the first sound keeps changing and they have the second, or I've done it with, like at the dollar store, I found these dry erase dice and you could write on one dice, just the consonants, the onsets, and on the second dice, just different rhymes, and you roll them, and then they can put it together. See, there's many different ways that you could do that.
Absolutely. Okay. I love this. So that's kind of the foundation. And then let's talk about this playing with sounds. I mean, sometimes we get so in our blinders, right? And we're like, okay, we need to teach all the letters and the letter sounds and all the stuff, but like, wow, shake it off, people. Let's just get back to play for a second. Tell me about playing with sounds.
Yeah, I just think it's like if you make it all fun, as much as there's an order to what the kids should learn, it kind of naturally, they're going to come up with the beginning sounds. They're going to, they're going to maybe skip steps, but it's like important to go back and get those steps. And so, playing with the sounds of language is just important for kids to understand how, so like an example of the playing with compound words, there's a part of you want to learn how to blend and segment them. So we're playing around with the sounds. I want to understand, if it's football, I want to understand foot and ball make football. They blend together. But what happens if I pull them apart? Now I pulled the word apart. Now it's football, and so being able to put words together, pull them apart, just to, mix up the language is okay too. Or if I say oh, I took away the foot, what's left? Oh, it's the ball. Oh, I got to put foot, so just kind of making it in a more playful manner. And anyone that kind of comes across that hands-on playing style of teaching, I think it's just very eye-opening if it's something you haven't done before or a way that you've taught children before, because it's more fun for the teacher. I should truly enjoy it because I'm having fun with them. I'm not forcing them to sit there and looking at their sad face and they don't want to do it and they're and it's like they're laughing and enjoying it just as much as I am engaging with them. So that's kind of just with the play of playing around with it, being silly with sounds that you can where the kids think it's funny and they remember that stuff. I could do even like alliteration where I could like lining the kids up and I could say, oh, silly Sally, it's your turn. And, instead of just being like, Sally, line up.
Yes.
And that makes it so much more fun. And it's something super simple.
Absolutely. I love that. And I actually love your tip when you're talking about doing the compound words with perhaps even syllables first before you break it into like the multi-syllables that don't make any sense. Like you said, like football, like that is so clear. And in the compound word, you can take those apart versus caterpillar and where do we stop and where do we start?
Yeah. Yeah. And what sounds like, because even when I've tried with kids and they're not ready for syllables or like you try clapping them out or something, they're just kind of guessing at first, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, I think I keep clapping. So that's why it is important just to kind of play around with the sounds of the language for them to hear hear the different sounds.
Yeah. And I think too, what a fun activity. I can like visualize this right now, if you've got the different graphics associated with, foot. Okay, here's a foot, right? Pick illustration of foot. There's an illustration of just maybe circular ball. We stick them together. It comes up with this football. Like, what? Isn't that crazy? Right?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. It's fun too when the kids start to make connections or you'll see they kind of are playing with the language themselves. Like I remember last year I was working with compound words. And then I think at lunch, one of the kids, there were peppers. And they were like, oh, it's a compound word like pepper. But, so they were moving on kind of to the syllables on their own, but didn't even realize it. But like we're hitting, I can like pull apart the sound.
Yes.
And so that's the fun of it too, of just, watching them incorporate into what they're doing, their world, their play.
I think at the end of the day, like if you asked any preschool teacher, what's your favorite part about preschool? I think almost besides sensory, because I love sensory.
Yeah.
But besides that, I think it's every preschool teacher would agree. It's seeing the children's eyes light up when it clicks, right?
Yeah.
Seeing that develop.
Favorite thing for sure. That's, I think, what's kept me working with, preschool children for so long. It's that when that click comes, you're like, they're getting it.
Yes. That's awesome. Shann, this has been amazing to chat with you. I could talk with you for hours on this, but I'm sure all of our listeners want to know, where can they follow you and learn more about everything you offer? So where should they go?
Sure. Check out our website, learnasyouplay.net. We've got all of our resources on there. We've got our phonological course, our membership. We've got printables on there that go along with hands-on activities. So you can kind of find everything right there on our website.
That's awesome. Everybody go to learnasyouplay.net to learn about her phonological course as well as her membership. So again, Shann, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Joy. Have a good day.
If you love today's episode, then you are going to love this. I want to give you a free gift in your hands. This is a copy of my book, Start Your Preschool, and I want to get it to you for free. Yes, I said for free. It is a 300-page book. It'll help you learn the step-by-step process to actually starting your local or your online preschool. Every single step that I walked myself through, as well as the thousands of women who've created their own successful preschools have gone through the exact steps listed in this book. Not to mention, I also share 20 amazing women's stories. So you can see how not only did it work for me, but it works for amazing women just like you as well. I want to get you this free copy. Just go to freepreschoolbook.com or click the link in the description and we'll get it to you today. Again, just go to freepreschoolbook.com and we'll get it right to you.